Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people that I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment. And today, I'm glad to have on the show a fella who's had his hat in just about every avenue of radio and TV over the years. Welcome to the show, Sandy Gillis.
How's you going, buddy?
Well, you
Hey,
know,
Tommy.
Yeah.
There's two of us here. There's Sandy and Jimmy, and we'll get to him later.
Oh, my God. My hands are full today.
Great to be on the show, and lovely to meet you on the radio, as we'd say.
Yeah, I heard a guy on CBC say that on Sundays usually, but anyway, Sandy.
That's Michael Enright.
Yeah. What a
Yeah.
gem of a guy. So,
Yep.
Sandy, I know that you've been in the business for a long, long time. I guess you started in radio in 1968? Well,
68.
How did you get started?
I was in high school at the time, and they announced a high school 15-minute radio show open to any high school. And I picked up the phone and called in and said, I'll represent my high school, and went in and taped a 15-minute show where I introduced the tunes and pretended I was a real DJ. And after the gig, we taped it in the afternoon. The guy said, "You know what? You sound like you've been in the business already." And I said, "Well, I've been practicing since I was 16 on my father's tape recorder, introducing all these tunes, playing Beatle albums and letting them fall down on the old hi-fi and hearing the needle hit. And I was talking all the way in and reading the news." I said, "I've been practicing for 2 years before I got here." So he said, "If you want to use our production studio on the weekends or evenings, feel free. I'll give you some guidance." And within 6 months, he came into the studio one night when he was on and said, "Okay, you're on." And I went from production to master control when I was 18, and it was fabulous. It's opened so many doors, and I was kind of a shy kid in high school, and all of a sudden, you're this DJ playing the tunes for, the kids in your school. Eventually, I got the 6 to 9 p.m. Monday to Friday top 40 show. And this was in high school, and that was a treat because they'd be listening to me playing tunes out of the box, Beatles songs, brand new, if you can imagine, and all the other late 60s stuff. And so that was a fabulous opportunity for me. And this chap who made it happen was a friend all of my life. He actually died here in Prince Edward Island a couple of years ago, and I had him out to the house quite often. And so this is my province now, is Prince Edward Island. I'm a Cape Bretoner, but that's how radio started for me.
It's interesting that you remained friends with the guy that you got started with all these years.
Yeah, I mean, I always credited his name was Weldon Boone, and he went on to work for CBC for a lot of years and ended up at CBC here in Charlottetown. And he made my life because from Sydney, I went to St. John's, Newfoundland. I had made all my mistakes and learned for 2 years. In 70, went to Newfoundland and really became the first rock jock they had in the province. It wasn't something that was on the current radio station chain down there. And so I got to take all the things I learned in Sydney, and I did a radio show from 6 till 10 and a television show twice a week, which was like bandstand. You brought kids in from all over Newfoundland and school buses, and we had bands. And so it was a rocket launch, really. And we had our own newspaper in the firm. And so there was lots of promotion of the television show and the radio show. And that got me an offer from Moncton, where I come in as the morning man. And that was the kind of key radio show that you all want to acquire. You want to work that morning show because that's the biggest audience. And that's where the characters started to come. I started to do on-air characters, similar to what you'd hear on a morning zoo in later years. But I would basically talk to my own characters and do comedy on the radio.
Right. How did you end up getting into the business end of it?
Well, it wasn't too long after that. I went to Moncton in 72, and by 73, I had started the dance business. This is the DJ business, and had the radio station promote it for me. So I was doing all of the dances, and it was hard on the old bod because I had to be in at 6 a.m. And some of these things were evening affairs. Weekends were okay. And then I started a broadcasting school in 74. This is while working at radio. And I hired all the management of the radio station to be my professors. And we had 40 students to start. And this led to the president of our company coming to me one day and said, "How would you like to make money for me?" Because I was making far more money outside of radio than I was in radio. So with my long hair down to my shoulders, he appointed me manager of my first radio station when I was 25. And there were 6 of us in a small town called Sussex, New Brunswick. And never had a station there before. So we went in, and the station was a big hit, and we were very community minded. We were involved in everything. And so the build-up was coming. The station went well. They moved me 2 years later to another one in Campbellton, New Brunswick, which needed some work, and it was a much bigger station. And went there. It worked out well. And I got an offer to go to Sydney, my hometown, and they were going to make me manager of a proposed new country FM. This is back when FMs were flipping from elevator to something else. And the something else there was going to be country. And so I resigned from this company I was with, gave them 3 months notice and said, "I'm moving to Sydney." So the offer came at that point to become a partner with the company I was with, which was called Eastern Broadcasting. And we had 7 stations then in the East. And so I went into Moncton and took over the 2 Moncton stations, which were the biggest AM and the biggest FM.
You know, it's interesting that you've managed to make a living in radio for all these years. I had a really good friend who you might be aware of, Greg Simpson, who was in radio for a long time and in record promotion and so on. And I had the opportunity to interview him just a few weeks before he passed away. And God rest his soul. But anyway, he had mentioned to me that he was proud to say that after all the years he'd spent in radio, he was proud to have made hundreds of dollars.
Well, you know, there are 2 sides. There are 2 ends of the spectrum. When I first started in Sydney, I didn't care what they paid me. And then they paid me more to go to Newfoundland, but that didn't matter either. I loved the business so much, and I was single. And then when I went to Moncton, they paid me more money to go there. And because it was the morning show, this is where they spend their money in radio, is in the morning show. So you get the best.
I'm going to just jot that down before I fill out my.
Keep that handy.
Morning show.
So they hire the best jock. They put the best news people. They have a sports guy. They put the money in because that's where the audience is on radio, is usually the morning show. And so money came, and then, I waltzed into the dance business, which made me a ton of money. And then I wanted to buy a new car, so I started a broadcast school and paid for that. But then found out what a great opportunity this was to develop people. The broadcasting school went for 13 years and followed me from station to station. I would run the school, in Moncton, then in Sussex, then in Campbellton, and then back in Moncton, and developed, a lot of talent. over the years, but 40 people went through the school who were on the air, either with our company or other companies. And some of them are still there, even though that's a long time ago now. I mean, I feel old when I see, the morning team at the Moncton Rock Station were both my students. One of them left and became the finance minister of the province. And the other guy stayed a year and then retired because he had so many years in. So
finance
radio
minister.
was...
So what you're saying is that you were a bad influence on your students.
A bad influence. Well, we found some really good people, even outside of the school. Like I would head off on tours. I would go to Ontario. I'd park in a hotel. And I'd listen to people in London and Kitchener and basically those two markets I liked a lot and see who I could find. And you'd steal somebody who was the afternoon jock or the evening jock and take them to Moncton and give them a mid-morning or a morning show. And I had a lot of stations that I was feeding by that time because we had probably 9 by then. And I'd be feeding talent. And back in those days, you had evening shows, you had all-night shows, a great development spot. I hired a young guy from down the road in Sackville to do the all-night show, Ian Hanomansing. And you've seen him once or twice?
Oh, I saw him. I think I saw him the other night on the CBC, yeah.
Yeah. So Ian came in as a jock. He was 19, and he worked a year. And he did his own news, and he sounded so good that we moved him into the newsroom the following summer, and he was in university. And then the next year he moved to our station in Halifax in the summer because he was at Dal. And do you ever have Brother Jake in your market? Bro Jake?
I can't say as I recall that.
Yeah. He did Toronto, Winnipeg, Vancouver. He was a Moncton boy.
Okay.
I had him as a rock jock, and, he's in the Radio Hall of Fame now and retired, actually. Brother Jake Edwards.
Okay, now that Jake Edwards, okay, that sounds more familiar. I was probably just a bit of a brain fog there.
Well, I think you may have heard him in Toronto.
Yeah. So I'm just curious now, what caused you to create the Jimmy the Janitor character? What inspired that?
But first, this very important public service announcement.
Hey, I got my first dose of the vaccine, and I really think that if we want to get summer back, get our festivals and our live music back, we need to get our first dose. If enough of us do this, we can have our freedom back. Yes, do this. And I know a lot of my famous friends agree with me.
Hi, this is Holly Woods from the band Toronto. I'm calling you to let you know that I got my vaccine, and I'm really glad I did. But, if I'm the only one to get it, it's really not going to do us much good. And we all want to get back on the road so we can come and see all of you. And if you get your vaccine, the faster you get your live music back. It's just a guarantee that we can all be just that much safer if we all get a vaccine, and we can get this thing behind us and have a beautiful summer. So come on, get your vaccine and join us all that have already had theirs. There's nothing to it. I've had so many friends get their vaccine and say that they've had very few side effects. And I've had a few friends die from COVID. So let's put this behind us, folks. We want to come see you, so get your vaccine soon. Thanks.
Well, thanks for that, Hollywoods. Now back to the show, as Sandy was just about to tell us where he came up with the idea for his character, Jimmy the Janitor.
We had an operation in Moncton that was really unopposed. We had 2 private radio stations, and we had a CBC station, and we had 90% of the market. And in this bustling city of Moncton, which was taking off, and a company was coming in against us, a new FM, and had a great morning man. He wasn't really funny. I think you're in London. He's over in Kitchener now. I think he's retired. Chris Harding, Robin Jeffrey, one of those names. So I had done comedy characters and decided to create something where we could put some comedy into a few half hours, just a short bit. And I developed a character who was a Cape Breton character. He became the janitor because he'd be in the building every day. And he backed into the control room with a vacuum cleaner running one morning. And we launched a daily visit from Jimmy the janitor. And then Jimmy moved from that station to the rest of our stations and another 4 or 5. And we went for 10 years with that character every day on the radio. And it led within a year to doing conventions and conferences, which hadn't been the plan, but people came asking. So Jimmy went out and did the show. And then on the 10th anniversary, took the show off. Just like Jerry Seinfeld, after 10 years, boom, gone. So we took it off and rested it. And then I moved to PEI after we sold the company. And I was here and had a little studio doing, was a production house, really, doing voices, character voices on commercials around Canada. And had a producer, and I thought, why don't we do another Jimmy series? So in 2006, we sent a demo out across the country of this 1-minute simulated live comedy show. They were Jimmy's audiences, but we recorded it in the studio. And we did 1-minute comedy shows every day, Monday to Friday. And we ended up on 90 radio stations from 2006 until 2020. We ended last June.
Okay. Now, you said that it was just like Seinfeld after 10 years. Now, Seinfeld and the gang all went to jail. Did Jimmy go to jail after 10 years?
Well, Jimmy was in jail, but they were usually the fundraising jails where, you'd have to get ransomed out. But that was as far as Jimmy went. The only problem Jimmy has with the law is speeding. I do a lot of driving, and so there've been a lot of stops. You get on highways in Alberta or Ontario, big long drives. We've played everywhere. And I don't know if you've been to Wawa. Have you ever played in Wawa?
I've been to Wawa, and I have one on my pedal board, actually. Yeah. Actually, no, this is a crybaby. Anyway. Yeah, I've been to Wawa, Ontario, and you better bring a spare gas can when you're driving out that way, too.
Yeah, no, you got to load up. So, I had done the show the night before up at the school theater. I was leaving, full tank of gas, pulled into Tim's, loaded up, and pulled out on the highway past the big, I think it's a Goose, at the corner, and put the pedal to the metal, and I was off to somewhere. I can't remember. It may have been Marathon, or I don't know which way I was going. But I was booting along at about 110, which is not too bad in the Maritimes. A lot of our highways are 110 down here, but that Highway 15, I think it is, going through Northern Ontario is 90 clicks. And so I come over the rise of a hill, and there's this OPP car coming right at me. And I've got my foot on the brake until I get to him, and then you take the foot off so he doesn't see you had your brakes on. And he keeps going and going. And then all of a sudden, about a mile down the road, I see him turn around. And he comes flying up the road like one of these chase scenes in an American live series. And the lights are on, so I pull over for like a minute before he gets to me. And he walked up to the back window, and he had the smoky hat on. The OPP wear these big hats. And got up to the back window, said license registration. I pulled it back to him, and he says, "Is this your car?" I said, "No." And I'm now moving into my shtick. No, it's a rental. I was in town doing a comedy show last night. I play a character named Jimmy the Janitor. And then he steps up to the window. He says, "You're Jimmy the Janitor? Holy crow, I wanted to go last night, but I didn't get off till 9. I said, "Well, you know what? We had about 6 of your guys in the audience last night in uniform," which was true. And I said, "It's too bad that you couldn't get there." And then I reached into my wallet and I handed him a card. And I said, "Listen, the next, just keep an eye on our website because I'll be back here and be great to have you." He said, "Yeah, well, hot darn. Yeah, well, thanks very much." I said, "Thank you." And that was my Wawa wonderful moment.
Well, you know what your problem was? That the speed limit on Highway 17 is 100 kilometers, and you were on Highway 15, and I don't even know where that is. So,
oh, is it 17 that goes across?
Yeah. So your problem was you were on this imaginary highway.
I could have been on an imaginary highway.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he had the stance of an American police officer who I've been stopped by. But he had the big heart of a good old Canadian, and once he found out we had something in common, we both liked comedy, it was an interesting Wawa moment.
Well, that was a rare one because you're, on Highway 15 near Wawa, pulled over by a state trooper in Canada. So I really,
it's a wild one.
Yeah,
It could have been a dream.
Bad.
It could have been a dream I had at the Wawa Motor Inn.
Yeah,
it could have been.
More likely, that's what it was. Yeah. So now I know that over the years you've released 11 comedy albums.
We do. We have 11 one-hour comedy albums, all good, clean comedy, and available at jimmythejanitor.com.
I was going to ask you that question. So there's actually a place where people can go and get your material and you get paid.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, in the pandemic, it's hard to get paid. I haven't done a show since March of 2020. I play theaters and community centers that I rent. And renting a theater, hiring front of house, paying for the tickets, and then doing a deal with our station in the market and paying them part of the shtick. I can't afford to do a show in Canada right now.
Well, what are you allowed to have? Like 10 people in the venue?
Like if we go into our 700-seater in Medicine Hat, you could probably have 200. I don't know what Alberta's bad, so maybe 150 if you're lucky. And you couldn't afford to even fly there, let alone pay all the freight. So yeah, it's just time off, really. I've written 50 segments, I call them. Comedians call them jokes, but these are segments that run basically 2 to 5 minutes. And so I wrote 50 of those, and this summer I'm going to go into the polish and rehearse mode and get all that stuff up and running so that as soon as we see the results of the vaccines and the dropping of cases and opening up of theaters, we'll be back and touring the country again.
Well, you better get her done because I know that you were going to go part-time in 2032, so,
2032, I'm going to go part-time, yeah. The bride asked me, when are you going to retire? I said, well, 2032, and I'm going to go part-time. Now, I'll be 82 in 2032. Now, that's been done before. I've done shows with Dave Brodbeck. Dave, you may have heard of from Royal Canadian Air Farce. And I did my first show with Dave when he was 69, actually 69. We did a show in a theater at Acadia University and spent the weekend together, actually from the airport to the venue and then the next day. And we actually wrote a comedy sketch for Air Farce on the way back to the airport. And the next time I met Dave, he was 76. I'm thinking, holy moly. He was 76. I was 45. And I thought, geez, I've got a lot of years left here. And then Don Harron, you're Charlie Farquharson.
Yeah.
Don would come to PEI every year, and we'd meet up at the same social event. It was a barbecue every year. We were both invited to the same thing. And, we'd chat about the biz, and I can remember hiring him one time to come into the comedy festival in Moncton, and then saw him perform up till his last show. He was 87 and did it in Ottawa, and then he died. I think he was 92. Yeah, so Don kept on going. And as long as you can make people laugh, why not? It's the only job where people applaud at the end of your work.
Right.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what it's like performing on a stage, and they like what you do, and they give you a big hand and hoot and holler and more. And
well, the only thing is that in the music business, we don't really take kindly to being laughed at. What am I out of tune?
Oh, it's a different business. Yeah,
it is. But my favorite Dave Brodbeck line was he did a Quebecois thing, and he says,
Jacques Larocque.
Jacques Larocque, he says, the RCMP, or as we say in Quebec, those buggers. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the sketch that we wrote for Air Farce was a Sergeant Renfrew. He was an honorary member of the RCMP, and he had a character he played on Air Farce, and he took on the road, actually. He had the uniform with him when we did the show. And he would come out as Sergeant Renfrew of the RCMP, and he did this big, funny thing in a slightly different accent than Dave. And he was a wonderful man, just a fabulous guy. Met a lot of great people over the years in the biz, and met a lot of you music guys. You meet them because you're promoting the show. I remember the first gig I ever emceed was in 1969 at Sydney Academy. It was the Guess Who. And, it was back in those days, just after These Eyes, and they had Undone and No Time. And so I met the boys, met Donald Kay, first time, met Donald K. Donald. And Donald was on the phone to me for the next 25 years, with, what do you think of, April Wine? Do you think they'll do anything in Moncton, Sandy? And so we had all his groups in, had Brian Adams show up a lot. Brian used to come to the radio station. He'd open for everybody. Brian opened for any Canadian group that was coming to Moncton. Opening act was Brian Adams. And
I couldn't get him to open for me. I don't understand.
Well, he should have. He used to come in the afternoon, come into the radio station anytime he's in town, and we'd let him sit in with the afternoon jock. And he'd be the guest and talk about music, and then he'd open up for Luba or somebody like that, or, I don't know who was in town at the time, but a lot of young Canadian bands came through, and a lot of them were promoted by Donald Kay, whether they were on Aquarius or not, but he did a lot of promoting up, probably still doing a little. I haven't heard from him for years because I've retired, but he was a character, and you'd meet a lot of people. My second gig was Alice Cooper, if you can imagine, at Memorial University in Newfoundland. And that was crazy, going from a Guess Who light pop rock band to this crazy Alice Cooper group. And it's quite an eye-opener. Anyway, a lot of good bands along the way.
I understand as well, Sandy, that you've given a lot of your time in community service. So,
indeed.
Yeah. So what inspires you to work with the community and lend a helping hand like that?
Well, we're all good Canadians. We'd like to give. I found most of my life was running the local radio station. I was running stations or a station in the market, and anybody who had anything they needed done for the community came to us. And so you get involved. I got involved in committees and boards and, chaired anything that needed to be chaired. And it was all part of us giving back to the community. And that was really our mandate. And I just kept doing it even after I retired. And, whether it's the Hostel Foundation or the Chamber of Commerce or the United Way, they all did good things for the community. And if you get invited, you go. And that's what I did. So it was very rewarding as well, as radio has been, as comedy has been. I live a very rewarding life and no complaints. It's been great. And it's not over yet.
Cool. So you're right now you're still working on new material so that you will have something to retire with in 2032.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I really have any more questions for you, Sandy, but I do like to give my guests the last word whenever possible. So if there's anything that you really feel passionately about, why don't you tell the people what that is?
Well, I think that right now the passion is our pandemic. And, I know that there's a good 70% of the country that can't wait to get a vaccination, and even a larger amount follow all the rules. I just hope that those people who are holding off wearing a mask and those who don't plan on getting a vaccine, don't hurt anybody else around them, especially, a family member. It's a hard thing to live with if you're fighting all of this and then all of a sudden somebody close to you dies from the disease. And so that's what I'm passionate about right now. I encourage people to get the vaccine that works for you. We're going to have so much of it in the next little while that you'll probably have your choice if you don't already. And, do for your fellow man, wear a mask, wash your hands. And as soon as we can get back to normal, the better in my books. And that only comes if we all sort of watch what we do and stop the spread. Because it spreads from one person to another. It doesn't go off on its own. So we just have to be good.
Right. Now, do you think Jimmy the janitor has anything to say right now?
Jimmy, do you want to talk? Okay, buddy. Right on. Listen, Tommy, did you have Kim Burley on and like Rich Dotson or...
I've had 2 out of 3 of the Stampeders on, yeah.
Who'd you have?
I had Ronnie King and I had Kim Burley, yeah. I can't get through to Rich, but yeah, apparently neither can Ronnie or Kim, so...
Well, listen, I just got to tell you that Sandy, the guy you were talking to, he broke the world handshaking record with the Stampeders back in 1973 in Moncton. And they all got together for today and shook hands, although they didn't shake as many hands as Sandy did, and broke the world handshaking record, 8,525 hands. Eh? Thank you, Stampeders. Wow. Great guys.
That's awesome.
Okay, listen, I'll leave you, and I'll let Sandy sign off. Eh? Good meeting you, buddy.
And
okay.
You too, Jimmy. Okay, well, you know what? This has been great fun. Great fun, Sandy and Jimmy. And
well, thank you.
Until such a time as guys like you and I can sit down and have a coffee face-to-face or beer and tell a few lies, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here. And until next time, cheers.
Thanks very much, Tommy. The best.
Well, that was a lot of fun. Sandy Gillis is one entertaining fella, I'll tell you. And I'm going to give you a treat right now. Here is some of Sandy's buddy, Jimmy the Janitor's stand-up routine. I know you're going to love it.
Jimmy the Janitor Live.
Me nephew Cecil played his first season of Little League softball last summer, and he's right good, eh? Best on the team, what? Anyways, during one of the games, the coach took him aside and he says, do you understand what cooperation is, Cecil? What a team is? Oh, yes, coach. And do you understand what really matters is that when we win together as a team? Yes, coach. So when a strike is called or you're out at first, you don't argue or curse or attack the umpire, okay? Do you understand that? Yes, Coach. Good. Now go over there and explain that to your mother.
See Jimmy live. Check our updated concert schedule at jimmythejanitor.com.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including producing, editing, guest acquisition, etc. All rights reserved. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends was written and recorded by Tommy Solo with a little help from my friends in the night crew. And hey, if you like the show, why not subscribe? Until next time, cheers.